There is something living inside every man that controls everything. His desire, his craving, his need to come back to you again and again like he has no choice in the matter. It controls whether he sees you as someone he enjoys or someone he cannot live without. It controls whether intimacy between you feels like a routine or like something that rewires him from the inside out. And here is what will shock you. It has nothing to do with how you look, nothing to do with what you wear, how experienced you are, or how hard you try to impress him. This thing, this hidden, wildly powerful part of him, has been operating in every man you have ever been with, silently, invisibly, waiting for someone to discover it. Most women never do. You are about to. Maybe you have been in this place before. You are doing everything right. You are present. You are warm. You are giving him your time, your attention, your energy. And yet somewhere underneath all of it, there is this quiet, persistent feeling, like you are one step away from something deeper, but you cannot quite reach it. Like there is a door between you and true, magnetic, unshakable connection, and nobody ever handed you the key. Or maybe you are stepping back into intimacy after years away, after loss, after heartbreak, after a long silence. And you want to understand men, really understand them, in a way that finally makes sense. Whatever brought you here today, I want you to know something before we go any further. You were not missing effort. You were missing this. Today, I am going to show you something that most relationship experts, most intimacy coaches, and most women will never discover in their lifetime. There is a secret organ inside every man. And no, it is not what you are thinking. It is not something taught in biology class. It is not something he will ever point to or explain to you in words. But it is the single most powerful driver of his desire, his attachment, his craving, and his capacity to fall completely and irreversibly in love with one woman. Once you understand what it is, and more importantly, how to speak directly to it, everything changes. The connection deepens. The craving intensifies. And something shifts in him that he will not be able to explain, but will feel every single time he is near you. We are going to go deep today. We are going to talk about neuroscience, about desire, about the invisible architecture of male intimacy, in a way that is warm, real, and something you can actually use. If this already feels like something you have been waiting to hear, go ahead and subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Let's talk about what you were taught about men. From the time you were old enough to notice the difference, the world handed you a very specific story about male desire. It told you that men are visual creatures, that they are driven almost entirely by what they see, what they feel physically, and how attracted they are to a woman's appearance. It told you that if you want to be irresistible to a man, you need to look a certain way, move a certain way, and perform a certain way. And so women spend years, decades, chasing that standard, worrying about their bodies, wondering if they are attractive enough, young enough, experienced enough, pouring energy into the external, the visible, the surface. And here is the painful truth underneath all of that effort. It never quite works the way it is supposed to, because the story was incomplete. Yes, men respond to visual attraction. That part is true. But visual attraction is the door. It gets his attention. What keeps him, what makes him stay up at night thinking about you, what makes him reach for your hand in a quiet moment, what makes him look at you across a crowded room like you are the only thing worth looking at, that is something else entirely. That is something that lives deeper than his eyes, deeper than his thoughts, deeper than anything he can consciously control. The old story about men was never wrong. It was just missing the most important chapter. And that chapter begins with understanding something that neuroscientists have known for years, but that almost nobody is talking about in the context of intimacy and desire. That changes right now. Deep inside every human body, including his, there is a nerve unlike any other. It is called the vagus nerve. And once you understand what it does, you will never think about intimacy the same way again. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the human body. It travels from the base of the brain all the way down through the throat, the chest, the heart, and into the abdomen. It connects the brain to nearly every major organ. and it serves as the body's master emotional regulation system, the internal switchboard that decides in any given moment whether a person feels safe or threatened, open or closed, alive or shut down. Think of it as his body's hidden emotional switch. When the vagus nerve is calm and activated in the right way, something remarkable happens. The body opens, the walls come down, the heart rate softens, the breath deepens. And in that state, that specific, beautiful neurological state, a man becomes capable of something that goes far beyond physical pleasure. He becomes capable of full surrender, not weakness, not vulnerability in the way that frightens him, but the kind of deep cellular level surrender that happens when every part of him, his mind, his body, his nervous system, feels completely safe and completely electrified at the same time. That is the state where real intimacy lives. That is the state where craving is born. That is the state where a man stops experiencing a moment and starts living inside it. And here is what makes this so powerful for you. The vagus nerve is not activated by perfection. It is not activated by performance. It is not activated by the way you look in a certain light or the skills you have developed over years. It is activated by something you already carry inside you, something you were born with, something no one ever thought to tell you was your greatest intimate power. This is the moment everything shifts. Because when you understand that the deepest layer of male desire runs through his nervous system, not just his eyes, not just his body, you stop playing the game everyone told you to play, and you start playing an entirely different one, a deeper one that most women do not even know exists. Think about the women throughout your life who seem to have an inexplicable power over men, not necessarily the most conventionally beautiful, not necessarily the most experienced, but something about them made men orbit them, made men remember them long after the relationship ended, made men say things like, "I don't know what it was about her, I just couldn't stop thinking about her." That was not magic. That was not luck. That was nervous system activation, whether those women knew it or not. They were doing something, naturally or instinctively, that spoke directly to his vagus nerve. That created a feeling in him that he had no language for but could not escape. A feeling that became permanently associated with her presence. And here is the most empowering truth of this entire video. That is learnable. What those women did instinctively, you can do intentionally, with awareness, with presence, with the quiet confidence of a woman who understands what is actually happening beneath the surface of every intimate moment. You are not going to become a different woman to do this. You are going to become a more fully yourself woman, more present, more embodied, more connected to the extraordinary power you have been carrying all along without realizing it. The shift is not in what you do. The shift is in what you understand. I want you to sit with something for a moment before we move forward. Every intimate encounter you have ever had, every moment of real connection, every time something felt electric and alive between you and another person, his nervous system was involved. His vagus nerve was responding. Something in that space between you was either activating his deepest capacity for desire and connection, or quietly dimming it. You were never told this. Nobody handed you this map, but the women throughout history who were called magnetic, unforgettable, transformative in the lives of the men who loved them, they understood this on some level. They understood that what happens between two people in intimate space is not just physical. It is neurological. It is emotional. It is the language of two nervous systems learning to speak to each other. And the woman who learns to speak that language fluently, she becomes something a man has no defense against. Not because she manipulates him, not because she tricks him or performs for him, but because she offers him something his nervous system has been quietly searching for his entire life, the feeling of being completely safe and completely alive in the same moment. The women who make men completely lose themselves are not doing something extraordinary with their bodies. They are doing something extraordinary with his nervous system. Remember that line, because everything I am about to share with you in the next section builds directly on it, and it is going to change the way you move through every intimate moment for the rest of your life. Here is something that will completely reframe the way you think about intimacy. Before a man can fully open, before his nervous system can release into genuine desire, deep craving, or real emotional surrender, It has to feel one thing first. Safe. Not safe in the way we usually mean the word. Not safe like comfortable or familiar or predictable. Safe in a neurological sense. Safe in the way that his vagus nerve stops scanning the environment for threat and starts opening toward connection. Safe in the way that every wall he has ever built, every layer of guardedness, every learned defense quietly dissolves without him even realizing it is happening. And here is what most women do not understand about this. A man's nervous system is running a threat assessment almost constantly in his daily life, in his work, in his relationships. He has been conditioned by culture, by experience, by the way men are raised to stay alert, stay controlled, stay defended. That guardedness is not a character flaw. It is a survival pattern, and it runs deep. Which means that when a woman creates genuine safety for his nervous system, she is offering him something he almost never receives. Imagine him walking through your door after a hard day. His nervous system is activated, tight, vigilant, carrying the weight of everything he navigated without showing it. Most interactions he has had all day have required him to perform, to produce, to hold it together. And then there is you, not asking anything of him in that first moment, not filling the silence with demands or questions or emotional needs that require his immediate attention. Just present, warm, steady, like a place he can actually land. That feeling, that specific neurological exhale that happens when his system recognizes, here I am safe, is the foundation of everything. It is the prerequisite for every other activation key we are going to discuss. You create safety not through what you say, but through how you are, through the steadiness of your presence, through the absence of judgment in your gaze, through the warmth that your body communicates before a single word is spoken. When his nervous system feels that safety radiating from you, something unlocks. The breath deepens, the shoulders drop, the walls come down. And in that open, unguarded state, his capacity for desire, for craving, for genuine, intimate connection expands into something that neither of you could have accessed any other way. Safety is not the beginning of intimacy. Safety is intimacy. Now that his nervous system feels safe, here is where most women make their first mistake. They rush. And it makes complete sense why. When connection finally feels close, the instinct is to reach for it as quickly as possible, to close the distance, to get to the moment. But rushing, even with the best intentions, sends a signal to his nervous system that bypasses the deepest layers of his desire response entirely. Here is what neuroscience tells us about anticipation. The brain's reward system, the circuitry most directly linked to craving, desire, and the intoxicating feeling of wanting, is activated most powerfully not by receiving, but by almost receiving. The space between reaching and touching, the moment before the moment, that suspended, electric, breath-held fraction of time where everything is possible and nothing has happened yet. That space is where his deepest desire lives. And the woman who knows how to inhabit that space, who is comfortable enough in her own presence to slow everything down, to let the anticipation build, to resist the urge to rush toward resolution, that woman does something extraordinary to his nervous system. She teaches it to hunger. Think about what it feels like to slow down a moment that the world tells you to rush through. A conversation where you pause before you answer, not because you are uncertain, but because you are fully considering. A touch that travels slowly instead of arriving immediately. A look that lingers 3 seconds longer than expected. Each of these micro moments sends a direct signal to his vagus nerve that something rare is happening, that this is not routine, that this woman is different in a way he cannot immediately categorize or file away. The slow burn is not a technique you perform, it is a state you inhabit. It comes from being so fully present in your own body, so genuinely connected to the moment, that there is nowhere to rush to, because right here, right now, in this slowed down, fully inhabited moment, this is already everything. When you stop rushing toward the destination and start living inside the journey, something shifts in the room. He feels it before he understands it. His nervous system registers that this woman is not anxious. She is not performing. She is not trying to get somewhere. She is here. And that quality of presence, that unhurried, fully embodied aliveness, is one of the most activating signals his nervous system can receive. The moment you slow down is the moment he wakes all the way up. Of all the tools you carry into every intimate moment, this one might be the most powerful. And you have had it your entire life. Your gaze. Not the casual, everyday eye contact of conversation. Not the polite glance that acknowledges someone's presence. I am talking about something different. Something deliberate. Something that neuroscientists have studied and found to be one of the most direct activators of the vagus nerve in human interaction: sustained, warm, intentional eye contact. Here is what happens in his brain when you look at him, really look at him, in the way I am about to describe. His brain releases oxytocin, the same neurochemical responsible for bonding, attachment, and the feeling of being deeply known by another person. His vagus nerve activates. His nervous system shifts from guarded to open. And something in him, something beneath conscious thought, registers that the woman looking at him is not just seeing his surface. She is seeing him. There is a specific quality of gaze that creates this response. It is not intense in a way that feels uncomfortable. It is not searching or analytical. It is soft and steady and full, the kind of look that says, "I see you and I am not afraid of what I see." It is the look that holds rather than grabs, that stays rather than flickers, that communicates presence without pressure. Most people make eye contact the way they check a box, a quick acknowledgement before moving on. But when you learn to hold a gaze with genuine warmth and full attention, when you let your eyes communicate what words never quite can, you bypass every defense he has ever built. Because the eyes are a direct channel to the nervous system. His brain is wired to read the eyes of another person for safety, for connection, for the answer to the question every human being is always quietly asking, "Am I truly seen here?" When your gaze answers yes, when it says, "I see you fully and what I see matters to me," his vagus nerve responds with an activation that ripples through his entire body. There is a specific way of looking at someone that makes them feel like the only person in the world. You do not need to learn it from scratch. You need to remember it. It is the way you look at something you deeply love, something you are genuinely grateful to have in your life. Turn that gaze toward him and watch what it unlocks. This is the activation key that surprises women the most, because it has nothing to do with what you say. It has everything to do with how your voice sounds when you say it. The vagus nerve, his hidden secret organ, the master switch of his desire and emotional response, has a branch that runs directly to his ear. It is called the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, and it responds with remarkable sensitivity to the qualities of human voice, not the words, the qualities, the warmth, the pace, the depth, the steadiness. When you speak to him in a voice that is slow, warm, and low, not performed or exaggerated, but genuinely relaxed and present, that sound travels through his ear canal and lands directly on a nerve that is wired to open him, to soften him, to signal to his entire nervous system that something safe and beautiful is happening. This is not poetic metaphor, this is anatomy. His ear is a direct pathway to his vagus nerve, and his vagus nerve is the gateway to everything: desire, surrender, attachment, the feeling of being completely alive in someone's presence. Think about the voices that have ever stopped you mid-thought, the voices that felt like being wrapped in something warm, the voices that made you want to lean closer, not because of what they were saying, but because of the way the sound of them felt in your body. That is vagus nerve activation happening in real time. Now consider what your voice is doing in your most intimate moments. Is it rushed, anxious, performing, or is it slow, warm, and deeply present? The voice of a woman who is fully here, fully comfortable, fully alive in this moment. Your voice is not just communication, it is a direct line to his nervous system. You do not need a different voice. You need your voice in its most natural, unhurried, fully present state. The voice that emerges when you are completely relaxed and completely connected to what you are feeling. Practice speaking more slowly, not artificially, but with the pace of someone who is not in a hurry because they know that right here, right now, there is nowhere more important to be. Let your voice carry warmth like something you are genuinely feeling, not something you are trying to project. And pay attention to what changes in the room when you do, because the moment your voice shifts, his nervous system shifts with it. We have arrived at the most powerful activation key of all, the one that underlies every other key we have discussed, the one that, when fully understood and fully embodied, makes everything else fall into place naturally. Full, undivided, embodied presence. Not presence in the casual sense of being in the same room, not presence in the sense of giving him attention while part of your mind is somewhere else entirely. I mean the kind of presence that is increasingly rare in a world of constant distraction. The kind of presence where every part of you, your body, your attention, your breath, your awareness, is completely here, completely in this moment, completely with him. His nervous system can feel the difference, not metaphorically, neurologically. Research in the field of interpersonal neurobiology shows that human nervous systems communicate with each other in ways that bypass conscious awareness. When you are physically present but mentally elsewhere, thinking about tomorrow, replaying yesterday, running a quiet internal commentary on how the moment is going, his nervous system registers that absence. He cannot name it. He will not say, "You seem distracted." But something in him will feel the gap, the slight hollowness of being with someone who is not fully there, and in that gap, the deepest layers of desire cannot fully activate. Now feel the opposite. A woman who is completely here, whose attention is not divided, who is not watching herself from the outside or monitoring his reactions or thinking 3 steps ahead, who is just present, in her body, in the moment, in the connection. That quality of presence is felt by his nervous system as something extraordinary, something almost electric, because true presence, the real thing, not the performance of it, is one of the rarest gifts one human being can offer another. And when his nervous system encounters it, something in him responds at a level he has no language for. He becomes more present, more open, more alive. Because presence, it turns out, is contagious. When you are fully here, you create the neurological conditions for him to be fully here too. And when two people are both fully present, both fully in their bodies, both fully in the moment, both fully with each other, what happens between them goes beyond intimacy. It becomes something closer to magic. The most irresistible thing you will ever offer a man is your complete unguarded presence. Not your perfection, not your performance, your presence. That is the key that opens everything. Everything we have talked about so far has been building toward this moment, because here is where we go deeper than desire, deeper than craving, deeper than the electricity of a single intimate encounter. Here is where we talk about what happens when nervous system activation is not a one-time event, but a consistent, repeated experience that a man associates with one woman and one woman only. Here is where we talk about attachment. When his vagus nerve is activated consistently in your presence, when his nervous system learns over time that being near you means feeling safe and alive and fully himself, something begins to happen at a neurological level that goes far beyond attraction. His brain starts to wire itself around you. This is not poetic language. This is how the brain actually works. Every time his nervous system experiences that specific combination of safety and aliveness in your presence, his brain releases a cascade of neurochemicals, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, that create and reinforce a neural pathway. A pathway that, over time, becomes one of the strongest in his entire emotional architecture. A pathway that leads directly to you. This is what attachment actually is at its most fundamental level. Not a decision, not a conscious choice. A neurological pattern, a groove worn into the landscape of his brain by repeated, consistent, meaningful activation. And here is the most important thing I want you to understand about this. What most people call emotional unavailability in men is rarely a character defect. It is rarely indifference or coldness or an unwillingness to connect. Most of the time, what we label as emotional unavailability is simply a nervous system that has never been consistently activated in the right way. A man whose vagus nerve has never learned, through repeated, safe, genuine experience, that full emotional opening is possible without danger. He is not closed because he wants to be closed. He is closed because nobody ever gave his nervous system a reason to open. You can be that reason, not by trying harder, not by giving more, not by bending yourself into shapes that don't belong to you, but by understanding what his nervous system is actually looking for and offering it with the quiet confidence of a woman who knows exactly what she carries. You are not just someone he desires. You are someone his nervous system is learning to need. Ask most men to describe what makes one woman different from every other woman they have ever been with. The woman who got under his skin, the woman he could not stop thinking about, the woman who changed something in him permanently, and watch what happens. He will struggle. He will reach for words and find that they do not quite fit. He will say things like, "She just had this energy about her," or "I felt different when I was around her, like myself, but more," or simply, "I don't know how to explain it. She just got to me in a way I couldn't shake." He is not being evasive. He is not withholding the answer. He genuinely does not have the language for what he experienced, because what he experienced happened below the level of words. It happened in his nervous system, in the deep, pre-verbal neurological layer of his experience where feelings are felt before they are named, and where the most powerful impressions are made without a single conscious thought. His nervous system was activated, deeply, consistently, unforgettably. And because the brain attaches meaning and memory to neurological states, because we remember not just events but how events felt in our bodies, she became permanently encoded in his emotional memory as the woman associated with that feeling. He cannot explain it because the nervous system does not speak in sentences. It speaks in states. And the woman who learns to fluently create those states, the woman who understands that his deepest experience of her is happening in a place he cannot access with his rational mind, that woman holds a kind of quiet, extraordinary influence that no amount of conventional advice about men will ever teach you. This is why women sometimes feel confused when a man cannot articulate his feelings, when he says, "I care about you," but cannot seem to go deeper than that. When he acts devoted but cannot find the words to match his actions. The words are not where he lives. He lives in the feeling, in the state, in the nervous system response that happens every time you walk into a room. When you understand that, when you stop waiting for him to translate his experience into language and start understanding that his behavior is his nervous system speaking, everything becomes clearer. If he keeps coming back, his nervous system is telling you something his words cannot. Before we go any further, if this is resonating with you, if something here is landing in a way that feels true and important, I want to invite you to join this community. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because what I share here every week goes deeper than anything you will find in mainstream relationship advice. Leave a comment below and tell me, has a man ever made you feel like he was deeply connected to you but could never quite put it into words? You are not alone in that experience, and now you know why. There is a particular kind of woman that exists in the memory of certain men like a permanent fixture, not a fantasy, not an idealization, but a real, specific, lived memory of a real woman whose presence created something in his nervous system so profound, so distinct from everything else he had ever experienced, that years later, decades later, the memory of her still carries a physical weight. He moved on. He built a life. He loves the people around him. But she is still there, in a room in his memory that never quite closes. You already know the kind of woman I am describing. You may have heard a man talk about her. You may have been quietly aware that somewhere in his past, there is a woman who occupies a space that feels different from all the others. That woman did not get there because she was perfect. She got there because of what she did to his nervous system. She made him feel something that his body memorized, a specific combination of safety and electricity, of being fully seen and fully desired, of coming home and being set on fire at the same time. His vagus nerve activated in her presence in a way it had never activated before, and the brain, which is exquisitely designed to remember experiences that feel significant, held onto that feeling and attached her face, her voice, her presence to it permanently. That is the neuroscience of being unforgettable. And here's the truth that I most want you to carry forward from this chapter. That kind of impression is not made through extraordinary circumstances. It is not made through grand gestures or perfect moments or being the most beautiful or the most experienced or the most anything. It is made through consistency, through the steady, repeated, genuine activation of his nervous system in your presence, through being the woman who makes him feel safe enough to open and alive enough to stay open. Through understanding that the deepest intimacy is not an event. It is a state that two people learn to create together over time. Men don't remember the most beautiful woman they've been with. They remember the one who made them feel the most alive. You now know exactly how to be that woman, not by becoming someone different, by becoming more completely, more consciously, more powerfully yourself. Here's something that nobody in the intimacy space talks about honestly enough. The thing that shuts his nervous system down fastest is not disinterest. It is not coldness. It is not even conflict or distance. It is performance. And almost every woman does it, not because she is being fake, but because she has been taught, subtly and persistently, that intimacy is something she needs to get right, that there is a standard to meet, a level of skill, of appearance, of responsiveness that determines whether she is good enough in these moments. So she performs. She monitors how she looks from the outside. She thinks about whether she is doing the right thing, making the right sounds, creating the right impression. Part of her is in the moment, and part of her is hovering above it, watching, evaluating, adjusting. And here is the painful irony of that. His nervous system feels it, not consciously. He will not turn to you and say, I can tell you are performing right now. But his vagus nerve, that exquisitely sensitive system we have been talking about, registers the difference between a woman who is fully present and a woman who is partially elsewhere. It registers the subtle tension of self-monitoring, the slight disconnection of a mind that is watching instead of feeling. And in response to that signal, his system does the one thing you least want it to do. It pulls back, not because he does not want to be there, but because his nervous system is designed to mirror the state of the person he is with. When your nervous system is performing, tense, watchful, self-conscious, his nervous system cannot fully open. The two systems are in conversation, and the conversation is saying, we are not fully safe here yet. The liberation in understanding this is enormous, because it means that the pressure you have been putting on yourself, the exhausting, joy-robbing pressure to perform, is not only unnecessary, it is the very thing working against you. Drop the performance. Step into the feeling. Be in your body instead of above it. That shift alone changes everything. There is a pattern that shows up in intimate relationships so consistently that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It is the pattern of watching him, constantly scanning his face for signs of satisfaction, adjusting your behavior based on what his expression seems to be communicating, calibrating everything you do around the question, is he pleased? Is he satisfied? Am I enough right now? It feels like attentiveness. It feels like caring. And in a way, it is both of those things. But it is also, neurologically speaking, one of the most powerful ways to accidentally dim the very response you are trying to create. Here is why. When your primary orientation in an intimate moment is toward his reaction, when your attention is flowing outward, watching and waiting and adjusting, you have left your own experience. You have stepped out of your body and into a position of anxious observation. And his nervous system, which is always reading yours, receives that signal clearly. It reads, she is not here. She is waiting for something from me. And that subtle energetic dynamic, her waiting for something from him, reverses the polarity of attraction in a way that neither of you may consciously notice, but both of you will feel. The women who activate men most powerfully are not the ones watching for his reaction. They are the ones fully inhabiting their own. They are so genuinely present in their own experience, so connected to what they are feeling, what they are sensing, what is moving through them in this moment, that his nervous system has no choice but to respond. Because real, embodied, self-possessed feminine energy is one of the most activating forces his nervous system will ever encounter. You are not meant to be an observer of intimate moments. You are meant to be the one creating them. Stop watching for his reaction and start leading the energy of the room with your own presence. When you are fully in your experience, he will find his way into his. That is not a technique. That is the natural law of two nervous systems in genuine contact. This last mistake is the one that surprises women most, because it has nothing to do with intimate moments themselves. It has everything to do with everything that happens before them. Most women, when they think about activating a man's desire and deepening intimate connection, think about what happens in specific moments. The encounter itself, the closeness, the physical space between two people when the world has gone quiet. But his nervous system does not switch on at the moment intimacy begins. It has been reading you all day, every interaction you had with him this morning, the tone of the text you sent at noon, the way you looked at him across the dinner table, the quality of your presence during a quiet conversation before bed. All of it, every single micro moment of connection or disconnection, is registering in his nervous system and either building toward openness or quietly accumulating into guardedness. The vagus nerve is always listening, which means that the safety, warmth, and genuine presence you create in ordinary moments is not separate from your intimate connection. It is your intimate connection. The woman who understands this stops thinking about intimacy as an event with a beginning and an end. She starts understanding it as a continuous living conversation between two nervous systems, a conversation that never fully pauses, that is always being written in the small moments, the ordinary exchanges, the everyday quality of how two people make each other feel. A warm hand on his arm as he walks past. A moment of genuine laughter where you are both fully present. A text that says something real instead of something functional. A look across a room that lasts 1 second longer than necessary. These are not small things. These are nervous system deposits, quiet, consistent signals that tell his vagus nerve, with her, I am safe. With her, I am seen. With her, I can open. Stop saving your presence for the moments that feel important. Every moment is important. Because his nervous system is paying attention to all of them, something is different now. You may not have a word for it yet, but somewhere between where this video began and where you are right now, something shifted. A door opened that cannot be closed again. A piece of knowledge settled into you that is already changing the way you see every intimate moment you have ever had, and every one you will ever have from this point forward. That shift has a name. It is the shift from trying to knowing. For most of your life, for most women's lives, intimacy has been approached from a position of trying. Trying to be attractive enough, trying to be skilled enough, trying to read him correctly, respond correctly, create the right experience. Trying, always trying, from a place of quiet uncertainty about whether you are enough. That trying had a cost. You felt it even if you never named it. The exhaustion of performing, the anxiety of never quite knowing if you measured up. The subtle but persistent feeling that the deepest connection was always slightly out of reach. But a woman who knows, a woman who understands that his deepest desire runs through his nervous system and that she has always carried the capacity to activate it, that woman moves differently. She does not try to be magnetic. She understands that presence itself is magnetic. She does not try to create connection. She understands that safety itself creates connection. She does not try to make him crave her. She understands that when his nervous system consistently associates her presence with feeling fully alive, craving is not something she produces. It is something that becomes inevitable. This is the identity shift that changes everything. Not a new set of skills layered on top of old insecurities, but a fundamental reorientation. From a woman who hopes she is enough to a woman who understands exactly what she carries and exactly how to offer it. You are no longer trying. You are knowing. And that knowing, quiet, confident, deeply grounded, is itself one of the most powerful things his nervous system will ever encounter in you. Before we go any further, I need to say something that does not get said enough in conversations about intimacy and desire. This is not only about him. Everything we have discussed, the safety, the presence, the slow burn, the embodied aliveness, none of it is fully accessible to you if your own nervous system is dysregulated. If you are anxious, self-critical, disconnected from your body, or running on the quiet exhaustion of a woman who gives everything and receives very little in return, you cannot offer genuine presence if you are not present to yourself. You cannot create safety for his nervous system if your own nervous system feels fundamentally unsafe. And this is not a flaw. This is not something to feel ashamed of or to fix before you are allowed to experience deep, magnetic, fully activated intimacy. This is simply the truth. And the truth, as always, is the most useful thing. Your nervous system matters. Your sense of safety, pleasure, and aliveness is not a luxury or a side note to this conversation. It is the foundation of everything. When you feel genuinely good in your own body, not perfect, not performing wellness, but genuinely at home in yourself, something radiates from you that his nervous system responds to before you have said or done a single thing. Your own regulated, alive, embodied presence is not separate from his activation. It is the source of it. This means that taking care of your nervous system, moving your body in ways that feel good, resting when you need rest, creating space for genuine pleasure and ease in your daily life is not selfishness. It is the most intimate thing you can do for your relationship. A woman who feels alive generates aliveness in the space around her. A woman who feels safe creates safety for the people she loves. A woman who is fully at home in herself is, neurologically speaking, the most magnetic presence his nervous system will ever encounter. Your pleasure is not separate from his activation. It is the source of it. Take that in. Let it change how you treat yourself starting today. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Not literally. Stay with me. But let your mind soften and follow me into this. Imagine a version of you who has fully integrated everything we have talked about today. Not perfectly. Nothing real is ever perfect. But genuinely. Deeply. In the way that knowledge becomes wisdom when it moves from your mind into your body. She walks into a room and something in it shifts. Not because she is performing confidence, because she is confidence. Because she is fully here, fully in her body, fully connected to the extraordinary capacity she carries. She looks at him and her gaze does not flicker. It holds. Warm and steady and full of something that makes him feel, without a single word, like he is seen in a way he has not been seen in a very long time. She speaks, and her voice carries the pace of a woman who is not in a hurry, the warmth of a woman who is genuinely here. And something in him that has been tight all day begins, quietly, to release. She is not trying to create a moment. She is simply present, fully, unapologetically, magnificently present. And the moment creates itself around her. He reaches for her hand, not because she asked, not because it is expected, but because his nervous system has found what it has been looking for, and every cell in him wants to stay close to it. Later, he will not be able to explain what happened. He will only know that something in him feels different, fuller, more alive, like a part of him that was quietly closed has finally gently opened. That woman is not a fantasy, is. She is you, with this understanding now living inside you. She was always you. You simply needed someone to show you the map, and now you have it. We started this video with a question hiding inside a title, a secret organ, something you had never heard of, something that promised to change the way you understand men, desire, and the invisible architecture of intimate connection. And now you know. The vagus nerve, his nervous system, the hidden emotional switchboard that controls not just his physical desire but his capacity for attachment, craving, surrender, and the kind of deep, lasting love that most people spend their entire lives searching for. You know that safety activates him, that slowing down creates hunger, that your gaze speaks directly to his neurological core, that your voice is a physical pathway to his nervous system, that your presence, your full, embodied, unguarded presence, is the most powerful, intimate force you possess. You know that performing shuts him down and being shuts him open. That chasing his reaction dims his response while inhabiting your own experience amplifies it. That every ordinary moment between you is a nervous system conversation that either builds toward connection or quietly erodes it. You are never lacking skill. You are never lacking beauty. You are never lacking enough. You are lacking this one piece of knowledge, and now you have it, not as a technique to execute, not as a mask to wear, but as a truth to carry, quietly, confidently, in the way that real knowledge lives in the body rather than just the mind. You were always this powerful. You simply needed someone to remind you. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Which of the 5 activation keys landed most powerfully for you today? Was it the safety signal? The understanding that his nervous system needs to feel safe before it can fully open? Was it the voice signal? The revelation that your voice has a direct neurological pathway to his deepest desire? Or was it the presence signal, the reminder that your full, unguarded presence is the most irresistible thing you can offer? Whatever it was, I want to know. Drop it in the comments below. Tell me which key felt like the one you have been missing. Tell me what shifted for you today. Because this community, the women who gather in this comment section every week, is one of the most honest, warm, and genuinely supportive spaces on the internet, and your experience matters here. If this video gave you something real, something you will carry into your life and your relationships, please share it with a woman who needs to hear it. You never know whose life a single video can quietly change. And if you are not yet subscribed, this is your moment. Click that button and join us, because what is coming next week goes even deeper than what we covered today. Next week, we are talking about the specific moment in every relationship where a man decides, consciously or not, whether a woman is someone he enjoys or someone he cannot live without. You do not want to miss it. Before this video ends, I want to leave you with something that has nothing to do with technique or neuroscience or activation keys. I want to leave you with this. You are not broken. You were never broken. The nervousness you have felt, the insecurity, the quiet wondering whether you are enough, none of that was evidence of a flaw. It was evidence of a woman who cares deeply, who wants to love well, who takes the sacred space of intimacy seriously enough to seek understanding rather than simply settling for surface. That is not weakness. That is one of the most beautiful things a person can be. You came here today because something in you knew there was more to understand, more depth available, more connection possible. And that instinct, that quiet, persistent reaching towards something deeper, is itself a form of wisdom. Trust it, follow it, and know that every time you show up, for your relationships, for your own growth, for the ongoing beautiful work of becoming more fully yourself, you are doing something that matters. You are worthy of the deepest connection imaginable. You always were. Now go live like you know it.